Hello there and welcome and happy Vernal Equinox, happy Spring Equinox. This year's March Equinox is taking place on March 20th, that's Saturday, March 20th, 2021, and that will be at, I believe it's 4:37 a.m. Central Daylight Time, Central USA Daylight Time. And for those of you in other time zones, you'll have to adjust that, but it is on the early morning hours of March 20th. So yay! Happy Spring Equinox for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere. Happy Fall Equinox to those of you who are watching from the Southern Hemisphere. Happy Rebirth. This is a time of great illumination. This is a time when the soul is reborn, when it is renewed. And this marks a very important point astrologically, this March 20th equinox, because this is the time when the sun in the zodiac passes into 0 degrees Aries. And what is Aries? Aries is that first spark of life. It is the life force energy pushing up from deep within the earth and bursting through the soil. It's the hidden vitality within you. You might even say that it's aligned with the Kundalini energy, the inner fire, or as I like to call it simply, the inner light, the inner pilot light. So there is a quickening at this time, an illumination. And you can see this reflected. What's happening on the inside is reflected in the outer world. Just like what's happening right here with the daffodils growing behind me. They've already popped up and they're blooming. And daffodil is a wonderful springtime flower to embody the development that is happening in our soul. It shows us how that energy is returning again. It's breaking forth. It's pushing up from beneath the surface. So it's been there all along, but it was hibernating. And now it's coming back up, at least for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere. And this movement of the equinox, just look at what is happening with the daylight. Look at how, in the Northern Hemisphere at least, there are hours of daylight now, more. We actually have some daylight. It's becoming longer and longer now. Now you will hear that the equinox is the time when day and night are equal. It should be said when they are roughly equal. They're not exactly equal in most places on that time. Now, I don't know, maybe if you're living at the North Pole it might be. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that would make sense to me according to the astronomy. I don't live at the North Pole though. Okay. Actually, in many locations on Earth, there is slightly more daylight on both of the equinoxes than night. And this just has to do with, well, a lot of things. Atmospheric refraction, the fact that the sun, is angular. It has to do with time zones and latitudes, okay? For example, if you live on the equator, your days are always longer than 12 hours, okay? If you're at the South Pole, I believe that on this vernal equinox, you're going to have 24 hours of sunlight. I don't live there either, but, it's not all hitting the Earth exactly the same. And plus, the Earth speed is variable, okay? I don't want to get into all those, minutiae, because I think to get into that too much would diminish the spiritual message here, the energetic core of what we're talking about here. And that is simply that this vernal equinox is the return of light. And yes, it is a time when day and night are almost equal. Really, in most places, day and night don't get exactly equal, but you'd have to check and do some research for your location if you wanted to learn more about that, because it's going to be different by location, to location, because of all these time zones we have and things like that and latitudes. But it definitely is a time of balance. Both of the equinoxes bring us into a center point of balance from which rebirth can occur, especially the spring equinox for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere. And just think about that. Think about what is happening here. The sun itself, and the center of the sun to be more specific, is aligning with the celestial equator and crossing it. That sun is going to cross. It's going to sit on that equator briefly. And it's going to cross that equator in a northern fashion. I mean, what a magical alignment that is. And in most places on Earth, the sun will rise due east and due west on the equinox day. So there's a real magnetic and electromagnetic and spiritual and kinetic alignment around this time. And again, just look around you and see what is happening. Day and night are changing. The energies are accelerating. Whether you live in the northern or the southern hemisphere, around the time of the equinox, the lengths of day and night begins to change dramatically. And so it is within us. Our power centers, our chakras, our auras, our whole consciousness begins to engage and change in a much more dramatic way around the time of the equinoxes. And here in the northern hemisphere, this is a spring equinox. So for us, it is a re-engagement with activity in the outer world. That's what Aries is about to a great deal, to a great point, because it's this hidden fire, the first spark. It's the first spark of new ideas, of creativity. It's not the manifestation yet. It's the idea to get started, to get going. Aries is the best sign for getting going in. And if you know any people who have strong Aries in their charts, they're very often executive type personalities. They're decision makers. They like to get the ball rolling. They like to get things started. They don't always finish things. In fact, they need to have a Taurus or a Capricorn or, I don't know, even an Aquarius. They need to have some other kind of sign around to help them complete. But they do get things started. And that is the energy that we are experiencing here now. That momentum is filling your cells, so to speak. It's filling up your aura, and your lower chakras are coming back to life with this movement of energy, at least for those of us in the northern. And I don't know, maybe in the southern hemisphere it's the opposite. I can't say because I haven't spent a lot of time there. Any time, actually, in this lifetime, I should say. But I would say that north is still north and south is still south. So with the sun crossing up towards the North Pole, you know, there is a reactivation of a sense of direction and purpose. The North Pole is associated in many cultures, going back to ancient times, with purpose. You know, that's why we say the North Star as well. You know, follow your North Star. That's a phrase that means basically follow your higher purpose, you know, your inner direction, your inner compass. So yes, happy rebirth, happy re-illumination. In the days ahead, dear one, you're going to become clearer and clearer about where you want to go, what you want to do. This is a great time for becoming unstuck. It's a time for renewing your optimism and faith. Have you failed at something that you wanted to get done, or you started but found you couldn't do it in the past, or you've just become discouraged? Well, no worries. With this new energy coming in, it will renew your optimism. It will renew that commitment to take the next step wherever you're at. Now is time to take the next step. It might be a small step. It might be just pushing up through that crust of the earth, but it will be an important step nonetheless. So yes, in the weeks ahead, especially right around the time of this equinox, align yourself with the energies. Take some time to tune into what is the next step for you. What is the next step in moving forward on your spiritual path, on your creative path? Think of these things first, if you can, and also on other levels. What is your next step to move ahead financially, career-wise, in terms of your intellectual development, in terms of making your mark, in terms of being a pioneer? Aries is the energy of the pioneer. What do you want to do that's a little bit cutting edge for you or your family or your community? These are all things to meditate upon and ponder in the weeks ahead, and especially around the time of the March 20th equinox. Happy Vernal Equinox to you all. Happy Spring Renewal. And for those of you in the South, happy Fall Release. Until next time, I'm Psychic Cynthia, sending you good vibes and blessings from the cosmic realms.